Hey everybody, I'm back with another video, and I want to show you some of the tools I've been using to get our spring garden going, and show you what I've got accomplished so far. So the first thing I want to show you is the seeder. Man, if you don't have one of these, you need to get one. This seeder is it makes getting your seeds in the ground so much easier than doing it by hand, like I've been doing for many years. And the seeder comes with several different attachments, and there's different sizes, and there's different spacings and things like that, and just makes life so much easier. I planted about a third of this yesterday with field corn, and took me probably 30 minutes to do a sixth of an acre. So that was tremendous. So hopefully that we'll get a good yield out of that. The other thing is this tractor. Check this out. This is a 1968 Simplicity 2110. It's a 10 horsepower tractor. On the back of it, I have a 36-inch rototiller. I married the two together. It took a little bit of work to get the two to work together. It is a Simplicity 503 rototiller. You can pick up a setup like this off of Craigslist for, you know, anywhere between $300 to $600. I've seen them on there. Come with mine. It also has a mower deck. I have a plow, but it is missing a few of the front end mounting pieces, so I'll have to fabricate something. But this particular one came with the mower deck and just the blade for the front. And I just got the rototiller off of Craigslist. I had to travel. Actually, it was on Monday. Today's Wednesday, so when you're looking at the garden, you'll see how much work I've got done since then. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, it was on Sunday I went up. Sunday I went up to get the rototiller, and came back, fabricated a pulley that I needed to get on there because the tractor didn't have it, and greased it all up, lubed it up, and went to rototilling. I rototilled on Sunday. I rototilled on Monday and Tuesday, and a little bit, none today. So after I got everything rototilled, I went back over and I made some rows and some furrow type things. And what you can see is I just drove the tractor down there and compacted that area back down. So that'll kind of be the walkway for now. And as I get input in, I will be adding over the top, like I explained. We got the wood chip pile out back. I attempted to get some of that ground up, and it's too hard and dry and wasn't grinding up very well. So I think I'm just going to let that pile sit for wildlife. But I still have the compost pile that I'm bringing in and getting incorporated. And over here, which is off camera, I have a gravity box full of wood shavings and wood chips, or mainly wood shavings and sawdust. So I'm adding that in as well. All right, so I tell you what, this little tractor setup here, man, it'll save you so much, and you can do so much more gardening with something like this and something like this. All right, couple of tips for you, something that I've implemented. Oh, the other thing too is I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how to use this, and I'm going to. Yeah, I've got the seed. I've got the corn one still in there. I'm going to demonstrate this with some other field corn. Now, I had some really old field corn that was purchased to just feed the wildlife, and I saved some back to plant and see if I could get it to grow. I've got some other field corn from a different source here, so I'm going to plant that right next to where I left off, and so I'll demonstrate that here in a little bit. Oh, let's see what we got here. Oh, this is what I was going to say. One thing that you need to do, you need to get yourself a notebook and draw yourself out a map of the garden and and write down everything that you've planted, because I'm guaranteed you're going to forget. You're going to forget exactly what went where. And in my case, I have so many different varieties, it's hard to keep track. And I'm running with a lot of different varieties because I want to be able to keep the seed going. That's my main goal. Well, main goal is to produce the best food you can. Secondly is to keep the seed going, so I never have to buy it and end up with anything that's non-organic. Hopefully the wind isn't affecting the microphone, so I'm trying to block it a little bit just in case. All right, so one thing that I've done in my seed storage is I've grouped them together in cold weather crops and summer crops. So you got the two different types of seeds put together. That way, when you pull them out, you say, okay, this is spring garden, and then I can pull the same stuff out and plant it later in the summer for the fall garden. So I'm going to keep these together. But within this group, and this is the cole crops and the spinach and the lettuces and all the all those sorts of things. So what I've done is I put together a bag that contains the stuff that I've already planted, empty seed packets. I don't want to throw them away because I want to know exactly what and when, all the information about the seed and how old it was and so on and so forth. So I throw all this in one bag, and that way I got them for later reference if I need them. I've got another one that contains all the seeds that I'm planting currently, and so, like, there'll be a few rows of this, a few rows of that, and if I haven't used all the seed, I throw it back in here. Now, whether or not I use any more of that seed for the spring garden, is I don't know if I'll be using any more or not, but I can pull this back out and then reuse it in the fall time. And so that's what I do there. And then I have one last seed packet or Ziploc bag of everything that I haven't planted yet. Okay, and some of this stuff I've started, and I've got seedlings about yay tall. But I've always had an issue with broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and getting those started and successfully transplanting them out. And I have less than ideal conditions as far as a grow room and greenhouse. I don't have a greenhouse, but less than ideal conditions, especially this year. So when I've tried to transplant some of the things out, they were spindly. They fell over. They died. They just didn't make it. So I planted so many, though. I got maybe 40 or so of each variety. So hardening them off a little longer, getting them more light, and trying to get them to take is one thing. But what I want to do is I've got some Brussels sprouts and some kohlrabi and beets. I hadn't even planted the beets yet. And some cauliflower and all of that stuff, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, cauliflower and broccoli in there, and beets. So I got to get these planted yet. So I don't have any of that in the garden. So that'll be another thing that I have to get planted. Well, let me go ahead and get the camera and bring in for a close-up of what I've been working on. Okay, I want to give you a pan or over of everything that I've tilled up. And again, this garden is 100 feet from right to left and 150 feet from front to back. So we're going to go ahead and start right here in this area. Okay, so now that we're in the garden a little closer, I wanted to kind of show everything that I've got here. This dark section here is input that I brought in from the compost pile. Underneath that was sprinkled in some newspaper, magazines, things like that I ground up in the mulcher. I'll show the mulcher in a later video. But anyway, we mulched all that up and laid that down, and mainly it planted in there is a lot of greens. There's just a lot of greens. I think there's some carrots in there as well. Don't expect the carrots to do real well there because the soil underneath is pretty hard. I wanted to get something going, and that's what I ended up with before I got the rototiller. Okay, and here what we've, oh, you know what? In that very first section right there, we've got some peas going. All right, and in these rows here, these 2 rows, I've got 2 different types of potatoes going on here. And here is Mary Washington asparagus. I started Mary Washington asparagus in the house, and it actually, I've got several sprouted, but again, with less than ideal conditions as far as a grow room and greenhouse, I wanted to ensure that at least I got some started now, because this stuff is perennial, and I won't have to worry about it once it's planted. And the next row back here is, and I'm going to refer to my book so I don't forget what I planted, but we've got Jersey Giant asparagus in this one, and then in this, or excuse me, I'm sorry, see, I already messed up, purple passion asparagus. Here we have the Jersey Giant, and at the very end I've got a Dutch white variety. So I don't know how many feet that is, but I'm going to guess that that's it's about a 30-40 foot row there of asparagus. Now, the other thing I wanted to do was, because this is going to grow up on either side, how I planted this, I dug a trench about 6 inches or so, maybe a little less, and I put some organic matter down in there, and then I planted the asparagus. I covered it all back up, and so there's a little bit of a dip still, and as that grows up I can add some soil to it. And also, just naturally, soil will fall from this upper mound that you see, and it'll just roll off right on top. It'll kind of take care of that for me naturally. And then up here on top, because this is going to be growing up on either side, it'll be somewhat shaded in there. I planted lettuce, and as you can tell, if you look real close, you'll see 1, 2, 3 rows. And I used the cedar, and I ran right down here, and I planted lettuce here. Let me see if I wrote what kind of lettuce. Okay, so I got Grand Rapids lettuce on this half, and I got Little Gem lettuce on the other side. So hopefully that'll help keep that going. I've got some red romaine lettuce growing here on this section. I think I only put 2 rows here. And on the top of this one, lettuce. That's all I put. So I'll have to see what it is when it comes up. And you know, another thing I'm going to do is, going back over to this side, I'm going to put in some sunflowers all along this side here with this wood chip mulch area. Get some sunflowers going, and those will, the south is that way. So I want the tallest things to be on this side, and slowly kind of step it down. So what I did to separate out my rows is, when I came to the end of a variety, or the end of a particular type of plant, I made a little walkway, because if I had 150-foot rows, I wouldn't want to have to jump over them all, or to walk all the way around to get to the other side. Kind of reminds me of why did chicken cross the road. So what I did was I went ahead and put little walkways in between. Now, if there's a different variety in between a row, for example, here, I just have some russet potatoes, and I stopped right there. So I put a couple stones to let me know that this variety changes, and then all of this is all red potatoes. So that's what I did there. And the reason I'm not telling you exactly what's here is because I didn't have the notebook when I started, so I'll have to wait till they all pop up. I know there's radishes and kale and things like that, and Swiss chard, things like that in there. These 2 rows here are where is it? How do you like that? I didn't write it down. 2 sections. Geez, oh Pete, that's why you got to write this stuff down. So take it from me. Don't skip writing it down. All right, I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to go I'm going to come get the camera, and we're going to move down a little further. show you a little bit more. Sorry about my sniffling. It is a little bit chilly out here this morning. Well, it's not really chilly. It's about 50-something degrees. But here's what we got. There's the entire garden. Look at that. 1/3 acre of garden. Hopefully this is going to do what I'm looking for it to do and produce 90% of our food. I have plenty of room for corn. I have plenty of room for beans. I have plenty of room for all sorts of things. All right. All right. Now, what we've got here is there's another walkway, and this is one that I can take the tractor up through, and that's what these lines are. Remember, I told you that I drove the tractor down through here to make the furrow lines, and this is basically 3 feet from here to here, and about 16 inches in between. That's my spacing that I have, and here we have, this is about a 4-foot bed. And this is, by the way, there's a lot of gardening styles out there. Raised bed gardening, square foot gardening, traditional row gardening, you know, the Garden of Eden, the no-till method. There's lots of different methods. This is going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a mixture of all sorts of different methods. I tilled it, so what you see is a row garden. You also see you see square foot gardening going on here, but it's a square foot gardening method kind of mixed with traditional row gardening. Now, if you looked at the last 2 rows there, you notice that in a 16-inch space, I planted 2 rows, and that's just the spacing is proper in between the rows this direction. There's enough area that I should be able to walk down through there, but close enough yet that it's going to snuff out any weeds. And in this bed, this would be a good example. Now, it's square foot gardening, but it's not raised bed gardening. But eventually, as I implement the Garden of Eden principles, it will slowly raise higher and higher. And you can see what with the wood chips and wood shavings here, what eventually this area here will look like as I apply more input. Anyway, we have also, again, I wanted to get these perennials installed as soon as possible, so I have 6 rhubarb starts that I put in here, and I probably have 30 of them in the house. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 9, 18, 30, no, about 4. I got about 40. Yeah, about 40 of them. Some of them died. Anyway, so the spacing for those is every 3 foot, so they can bush out in every direction. So this is a nice set of Victoria. I think it's Victoria rhubarb, and along the edges here, I planted radishes, and a lot of them, all along this edge, right down to, there's a stick down there, I'll show you. And then this side, I believe, was all carrots, and I didn't write that. Yeah, it is carrots. So here it stops, and then we switch over to another raised bed garden, and we got Swiss chard in there, right down through the center. We got Swiss chard, and I just Swiss chard in that one section. These other 2 rows I really didn't do much, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 feet wide, and then rather than having individual beds, you know, I can go back through here and plant in as needed. And before we go down any further, we'll just continue with what I've got going on here. And this row, this is from here to you in this row, starting with that rock, is all onions, and these are yellow onions, and then in the center is red onions, and these are white onions. And a couple other rows here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows here, And those rows consist of turnips in this row. And it goes down all the way to almost to the very end. And then we've got Great Lakes. No, we got Butter Crunch lettuce here, Great Lakes lettuce there, and Cosmic Purple carrots in the last row. Okay, I'll go get the... Oh, you know what else? I'm going to come get the camera and bring you down a little further. I planted yesterday, I broadcast up in that corner. I'll show you here. Up in that corner right there, I broadcast flax. About 3 pounds of flax seed. And it goes from, see the row here? It goes all the way from there, all the way down to the end. Sorry about the sniffles again. Let's see if this is a good shot. A little closer. All right. You notice right there, the very first plant you see is strawberries. Now, I bought a set of Everbear strawberry starts, and not one of them started. So I took them back to the store. They gave me an in-store credit, but they didn't have any more, nor did I get any more, because you know, even if they did, they probably would have failed as well. So I went ahead and got some that were already started, and what I did was I looked through all the plants, and I bought the ones that had double plants in them. So each one of these basically is a double, and I tried to lay them out so they'll spread out this direction, and I planted them in one row here. So you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 feet on the bed, and I planted them in that one row, so then I can get another row started in here later. Again, I used a rock to stop the row. And here, now this is early. In Michigan, they say the growing season should be, or you shouldn't, the last frost date is somewhere around mid-May. And it is still April. April 28th, I think, I planted these a couple days ago. Was it a couple days ago or yesterday? I don't know. They're all running together. But, you know what? I think I misspoke myself. Let's see. Yeah, no, okay. Going back to the previous rows, the turnips there, but after the onions, this is all peas, and what prompted me, I got a couple of peas that jumped out of the cedar and are just laying in the aisle. So anyway, I went ahead and got some tomatoes out here. Now, I wanted to make sure that they were strong enough. I took my smallest, kind of weakest looking plants and brought them out, all tomatoes, if I hadn't said that already. And I brought out different varieties because I wanted to see if they'd make it. Make sure I'd been hardening them off properly. And also, why not try to get a jump? I got enough tomatoes that if I get a few out ahead of schedule, hey, great, I'm 2-3 weeks ahead of the game. And if in the event of a frost situation, I just come out here and put a 5-gallon bucket over the top of them and keep them protected. But let's see here. What I've got here is a mortgage lifter. Now that mortgage lifter, obviously everybody knows how to plant a tomato. You snip off the lower leaves and plant it right up to the, I choose the top 3. You got the 2 main sprouts, and then you have the one just below it, and I go right up to that one that's just below it. So there's a mortgage lifter. We got a Beefmaster. That's a grape cherry. That grape cherry was picked up at, I don't know, I think I got the seed at either Chuck E. Cheese or Stevie B's, one of those pizza places that has a buffet, and rather than throwing them cherry tomatoes out, I grabbed one and took it home and saved the seeds out of it. So The other one is this is a grape cherry. The one right next to it is a round cherry. So one is from one place, one is from the other. So it just goes to show you can pick up seeds anywhere. And we'll keep a close eye on these and see how they turn out. And at the very end there, we have an orange smooth. I'm not sure the name of the variety, but it's a smooth type tomato. It's very large and it's orange. And I picked those up at the Kroger store. They had heirloom, and this was in Virginia. I haven't seen any heirloom tomatoes here in Michigan, but maybe they will have some. But anyway, so I wanted to get those out here and see how they did. And so far, so good. They're looking good. They're not wilting. Color looks good. This one's really dark here. The last one's a little light. That was the largest of the plants. I believe that one was probably that tall when I planted it. But anyway, keeping on here. At the very end of this, okay, now here's one problem that I am going to have is animals and critters. That looks like dog, but I also had deer out here the other day. Right here. No, that's probably a deer too. Looks like he just made a loop. Right there is a deer that's coming back here. And I'll have to see what I can do to try to deter the invasive critters out of here. Not that I don't want to scare the deer away. Deer are cool to have around, but they can be massively destructive in your garden, especially with your corn and your sweet corn and things. I just don't. I priced out that they have this orange safety fence. They also comes in green, and it cost me probably $150 to cover this with that stuff to keep the animals out. I don't think they'd keep the deer out anyway because they could just jump over it. All right, in these last rows here, I planted kale. This one is strictly kale. There's 2 rows. Remember, this is basically a raised bed garden, a square foot garden, and I have 16 inches, and I went ahead and put 2 rows in all the way down. Here, I got an heirloom 8-inch long carrot, Kuroda, Kuroda carrot, and again, square foot gardening method. I've got 4 rows in this 116. I could have probably got 5, but it was all I could get in there with the cedar. So I got 4 rows and 4 rows. So I'll have lots of carrots just in those 2 rows right there. That next row right there is a touch-on carrot. That also is an heirloom variety, and that goes all the way up to approximately where you guys are with the camera. And let's see, and I think that I got more carrots on the other side. I went with a lot of carrots because, man, I love carrot juice. And plant a bunch now, and I'll have them throughout the summer. Plant a bunch later, I'll have a bunch throughout the winter. So that's the goal there. So one last thing that I've got planted over here on this side, and then we're going to go to the other side, is horseradish. I've got this horseradish. I dug it up from over there. I got a bunch more that can be brought over. This root is about that long, and I planted it this direction, so I can bring some more over and get it in the garden. But I think this will be plenty. It spreads. It'll take over this area right here. Now, another thing I'm going to do later is right along this edge, nice borders. Onions are nice borders. Winter onions are nice borders because they can pretty much stay in the garden, and they'll just fall over and keep growing. And you just keep, they'll grow up, will grow a bulb, fall over, and also kind of give you a bit of a barrier as far as trying to protect your garden from some insects and things. And again, I made a little pathway right here just so I could go around without having to step over. Because when these plants get taller, you're not going to want to have to do this to get over your plants. Alrighty. Now, we're going to go to the other side. Let's go for a walk. Still got an awful lot of rocks to clean up. Not so many on this end of the garden, but I do have a lot on the other end of the garden. Here's a shot of the garden from this end. Let me back up a little bit. You can kind of see how little that tractor looks over there. Oh, there's right there. There's the gravity box I got all the sawdust in. These all belong to my dad. That trailer, we're going to get the wood off of it. That's mine, and that gravity box is mine. But the trailer it's sitting on, and those two boats will be gone. And right, can't see it, but there's the onions, and anyway, there's a close-up shot of that. Okay, anyway, so there's the garden. And look how dark the soil is on this end versus the other end. You can kind of see where it you can kind of see where it changes there into a more sandy, brownish type soil. This is a nice dark and rich soil. Okay, so let me see here. I don't know how many rows I have left over, but I have several. And this was the last row I planted right here. And what I did here was I run the seeder. You see where the tire track is, okay? I ran the seeder down one side, right at the edge, and then over the other side and back. Now, that's only about 16 inches, in some cases less, because I kind of did one of these numbers, but, and the spacing is every 6 inches for the corn. But this is really old field corn, and I'm expecting a low germination rate. Sorry for the shoddy camera work. Okay, I'm going to move it over here now, and then I'm going to show you where I planted the flax. Let's see here. A little crooked because we're on the side here. Let me straighten you out. Okay, back up on this side where I planted the flax. I can see some deer tracks. There's a deer track right there. I know they're going to be coming into the garden and making a mess. So hopefully I plant enough that they don't eat it all. Okay, if you remember, I talked about planting the field corn for a couple of different reasons. One is, and primarily, it's going to be for heat. From here to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 6 or 7 rows is field corn, and that goes all the way up to the other end. And the other here is flax. Flaxseed is high in amino acids, and each tablespoon of flaxseed contains about 70 calories. This should grow up and be a plant about 2 or 3 feet tall, and then it'll have some blue flowers, so that'll attract some pollinators to the garden. I'm just pushing some seed corn in that I see that didn't get all the way in there. And it'll be a nice cover. So hopefully it'll grow up thick enough that it'll snuff out the grasses and other things that are in there. Because this end of the garden has a lot more grass, and I'm going to end up having a little bit of issue with this side. But as it grows up, I can just pull it out and slowly clean it out. The other end looks a lot better. And Again, this is flax from where I'm walking over that way. I also planted one row of corn within the flax because the sunlight's going to be able to get down in there. They can grow collective together. Okay, all the way up to here is where the flax stops. Here's the aisle for the tractor to go through, and then this field corn starts here and then works all the way over to here, right to, Jesus, all the way over to here. More deer tracks over here. So they're in the entire garden. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's about 11 rows from here over. That's about a third of the garden. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. About 21 more rows that I can plant. So within this section, I want to do Three Sisters garden. I'm not going to plant the sweet corn as close as I did this field corn. Actually, I have about, I remember I'm going to do a demonstration on that corn. So actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and get right to that.